The great chamber of the Galactic Council on Nakaris Prime was older than most civilizations. Its walls had seen empires rise and fall. Its floors had felt the steps of conquerors and the defeated alike. For 10,000 years, the most powerful species in the galaxy had gathered here to decide the fate of worlds. And in all that time, no one had ever paid much attention to the humans. Ambassador Daniel Cooper stood at his small podium near the back of the chamber. He was a simple man from a simple planet. Earth had only discovered faster-than-light travel 30 years ago. In galactic terms, humanity was still a baby learning to walk. The other species looked at humans the way adults look at children playing with toys. They found them amusing, sometimes annoying, but never threatening. Daniel had been the human ambassador for 3 years now. He had learned patience in that time. He had learned to smile when the other species laughed at him. He had learned to keep his voice calm when they called his people primitive. He had learned to hide the anger that burned in his chest when they treated humanity like animals. Today was supposed to be a simple meeting. Daniel had come to ask for help. Human cargo ships had been disappearing near the frontier. The Shadow Maw Collective, species of raiders who had terrorized that sector for 3,000 years, had been attacking human vessels. 3 ships were gone. 47 people were dead or missing. Daniel explained the situation calmly. He showed the evidence on the holographic displays. He asked the council for patrol support in the affected area. It was a reasonable request. The council had a fleet specifically for such purposes. High Chancellor Vorinth leaned forward on his throne. He was a Crotheon, a massive insectoid creature with sharp mandibles and compound eyes that showed no emotion. His species had conquered 100 star systems through pure military might. They looked down on everyone, but they especially looked down on humans. The humans wish protection, Vorinth said. His mandibles clicked together in what passed for laughter among his kind. Perhaps your species should have stayed on your little blue world. The galaxy is not safe for prey animals. Laughter filled the chamber. 47 species, some ancient beyond human comprehension, all found this terribly funny. The humans wanted help. How adorable. How pathetic. Daniel felt his hands tighten into fists beneath the podium where no one could see. He thought about the 47 people who were dead or enslaved. He thought about their families back on Earth, waiting for news that would never come. He thought about all the times humanity had asked for help and been denied, but he kept his voice steady. We are not asking for protection, Chancellor. We are asking for cooperation. The Shadow Maw threaten all trade in that sector, not just human trade. Vorinth waved one of his many arms dismissively. Then evacuate your colony. Admit your weakness and withdraw. The strong do not beg for assistance. More laughter. Ambassador Xylith of the Valorian Collective did not laugh. She was watching the human, with her crystalline eyes, studying him the way a scientist studies an interesting specimen. Something about his stillness bothered her. Prey animals usually showed fear when surrounded by predators. This human showed nothing at all. Daniel nodded slowly. I understand, Chancellor. I will inform Earth's command of your decision. Thank you for your time. He turned and walked out of the chamber without another word. No pleading. No angry outburst. Just quiet acceptance. The council members returned to their other business, already forgetting about the human and his unimportant problems. Xylith did not forget. She pulled up everything she could find about humanity on her personal display. What she found kept her awake for many nights to come. 3 days passed. On the 4th day, the Shadow Maw Collective attacked the human colony of New Montana directly. They came with 15 warships, more than enough to overwhelm the colony's tiny defense force. The attack lasted 6 hours. 8,000 humans died in the initial bombardment. The Shadow Maw did not believe in clean kills. They wanted the survivors to suffer, to serve as a warning to others. When the guns finally stopped, 4,000 humans were still alive. The Shadow Maw took them all as slaves. Among the captured were 2,000 children. The news reached. 12 hours later, it spread across the planet in minutes. Every screen, every device, every public display showed the same images. The burning colony. The dead lying in the streets. The children being dragged onto Shadow Maw ships, screaming for parents who could not help them. For a moment, the entire planet went silent. 18 billion humans stopped what they were doing and watched. They watched their people die. They watched their children stolen. They watched and they remembered. Humans have short memories for kindness. They forget favors quickly. They move on from gifts and compliments and helping hands. But humans have very long memories for pain. They remember every wound, every insult, every wrong done to them and their families. They pass these memories down through generations, keeping the anger alive like a flame that never goes out. The silence lasted for exactly 47 minutes. Then Earth Command made an announcement in secret facilities hidden throughout the solar system. In asteroid bases and orbital stations that the Council had dismissed as too primitive to matter, something was waking up. For 30 years, while humanity smiled and played the role of harmless newcomers, they had been building. They had been preparing. They had been waiting for the day when the galaxy would remind them why their ancestors had survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed hundreds of millions. The Council thought humans were prey because humans had chosen to act like prey. It was easier that way, safer. It let them build their strength without anyone noticing. But prey animals do not survive for 200,000 years on a planet that tried to kill them every single day. Prey animals do not climb to the top of every food chain they encounter. Prey animals do not split the atom and walk on moons and reach for the stars. Humans were not prey. They had never been prey. They were predators who had learned to wear masks. And now the masks were coming off. On Xeris Prime. Xylith burst into an emergency council session with her research clutched in her crystalline hands. She had not slept in 3 days. She had read everything she could find about human history, and what she had learned terrified her more than anything she had encountered in 4 centuries of life. "You need to see this," she told the assembled representatives. "All of you. Right now?" She put the information on the main display. Human history. Human wars. Human weapons. The council members watched in growing horror as they learned about the world wars, about nuclear weapons, about the cold calculation with which humans had pointed extinction-level arsenals at each other and said, "If we die, you die with us." They nearly destroyed themselves, Xylith said. Not once, but multiple times. They built weapons that could end all life on their planet, and they aimed those weapons at their own kind. "What kind of species does that?" "A mad species," Vorinth said, but his voice had lost its contempt. "A broken species." "No," Xylith replied. "A dangerous species. A species that fears losing more than it fears death. And we just gave them a reason to stop pretending to be harmless." An aide rushed into the chamber, his scales pale with terror. "The humans?" he gasped. "They have a fleet. 200 ships, maybe more. They are heading for Shadowmaw space at speeds we did not think their technology could achieve." The chamber erupted in chaos. But Xylith just stood there watching the displays, knowing in her heart that the galaxy was about to learn a very hard lesson about the difference between prey and predator. The hunt had begun. Admiral Grace Sullivan stood on the bridge of the ESS Retribution and looked out at the stars. She was 53 years old. Her hair had gone gray at the temples. Her eyes had seen things that would break most people. She had fought in 3 wars before humanity ever left Earth, and she carried the scars of each one beneath her uniform. Behind her ship, spread across thousands of kilometers of empty space, was the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled. 247 warships, built in secret over 15 years. Each one was packed with weapons that the Galactic Council did not know existed. Each one was crewed by men and women who had volunteered for this mission. Knowing they might not come home, they had named the fleet after what they intended to do. They called it the Retribution Fleet. Lieutenant Commander Kyle Brennan worked at his station, running final checks on the navigation systems. He was young, only 32, but he had been handpicked for this mission by Admiral Sullivan herself. She trusted him completely, Admiral Kyle said without looking up from his displays. "All ships report ready. The Shadowmaw homeworld is 12 hours away at maximum burn." Grace nodded slowly. She had known this day would come. From the moment humanity discovered they were not alone in the universe, she had known. The galaxy was full of predators who saw kindness as weakness. Sooner or later, one of them would push too far. Sooner or later, humanity would have to remind the universe why they were still alive. "Open a channel to the fleet," she said. Kyle pressed a series of buttons. "Channel open, Admiral." All ships receiving. Grace took a deep breath. She thought about the 8,000 dead on New Montana. She thought about the 4,000 taken as slaves. She thought about the children crying for their parent. As they were dragged away. Then she began to speak, says Admiral Sullivan to all ships. 36 hours ago, the Shadow Maw Collective attacked our colony on New Montana. They killed 8,000 of our people. They took 4,000 more as slaves, including 2,000 children. They believed we would do nothing. They believed we would go crying to the council, begging for help that would never come. She paused, letting her words sink in across 247 ships. They were right about one thing. The council refused to help us. High Chancellor Vorinth told our ambassador that humans should know their place. He called us prey animals. He laughed at our pain. The bridge crew stood motionless. Every eye was fixed on their commander. Every heart was beating with the same cold fury. The council has shown us who they are. The Shadow Maw have shown us who they are. Now it is time to show them who we are. We are the children of those who survived ice ages with nothing but fire and stone. We are the descendants of warriors who conquered every corner of our world. We are the inheritors of a legacy of survival that stretches back 200,000 years. Grace's voice hardened into something that sounded like steel being forged. We do not beg. We do not surrender. We do not forgive those who harm our families. The Shadow Maw wanted prey. They are about to discover that they caught something very different. All ships, maximum burn. We reach the Shadow Maw homeworld at dawn. And when we get there, we teach them what happens when you touch our children. She cut the channel. Kyle looked up from his station. Admiral, the Shadow Maw Defense Fleet outnumbers us almost 5-1. They have over 1,000 ships. Grace turned to face him. Her eyes held no doubt, no fear, no hesitation. Tell me, Lieutenant Commander, how many wars has humanity fought? Kyle blinked at the unexpected question. Thousands, Admiral. Maybe tens of thousands if you count all the small conflicts. And in all those wars, in all those battles, how many times did we give up because we were outnumbered? A small smile crossed Kyle's face. Never, Admiral. Exactly. We have never once in our entire history surrendered, because the enemy had more soldiers, more weapons, more ships. We have won battles where we were outnumbered 10-1, 100-1. We have won because we refused to lose. We have won because losing was simply not acceptable. She turned back to the viewport. The stars streamed past as the fleet accelerated to speeds that should have been impossible for their supposedly primitive technology. The Shadow Maw think numbers matter. They are about to learn that numbers mean nothing against a species that does not know how to quit. Across the fleet, 247 captains received their orders. Marine units began their final preparations. Fighter pilots ran through their checklists one last time. Engineers double-checked every system, every weapon, every piece of equipment that might mean the difference between life and death. Private. First Class Derek Hughes sat in the cargo bay of a troop transport, checking his rifle for the 15th time. He was 22 years old, from a small town in Oklahoma. He had joined the military because he wanted to help people, to protect those who could not protect themselves. He had never killed anyone before. He looked around at the other Marines. Some were praying. Some were writing messages to their families. Some were simply sitting in silence, preparing themselves for what was to come. All of them had seen the footage from New Montana. All of them knew why they were here. A sergeant named Linda Park walked down the rows of seated Marines. She was a veteran of 12 years, with a calm presence that made everyone around her feel more confident. She stopped in front of Derek. First combat mission, Hughes. Derek nodded. Yes, Sergeant. Linda sat down beside him. Scared? Terrified, he admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. It is when you stop being afraid that you make mistakes. She looked at the young Marine with something like sympathy. What we are about to do is not going to be pretty, Hughes. War never is. But remember why we are doing it. Remember those kids on those slave ships? Remember that every enemy you stop is one less monster who can hurt innocent people.
Nice.
Derek swallowed hard. Do you think we can really do this, Sergeant? Take on an entire empire? Linda smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. Hughes, let me tell you something about humans. We have been fighting since before we could write. We have killed each other with rocks, with spears, with swords, with guns, with bombs that could level cities. We have survived plagues that killed half our population. We have survived ice ages that should have wiped us out. We have survived everything the universe has thrown at us, and we are still here. She stood up and looked out at the assembled Marines. The Shadow Maw have been raiding the galaxy for 3,000 years. They think they are the predators. They are about to discover that they have been playing at war. We wrote the book on war. We perfected it. And now we are going to show them what real predators look like. A cheer went up from the Marines. It was not a happy sound. It was the sound of humans preparing to do what humans had always done when threatened. It was the sound of a species that had clawed its way to the top of every food chain it had ever encountered. Back on the bridge of the Retribution, Admiral Sullivan received a transmission from Earth's command. It was short and simple. 3 words. Bring them home. Grace read the message twice. She thought about the slaves, the children, the families waiting on Earth for news of their loved ones. She thought about what she was about to unleash on the Shadow Maw. She felt no guilt. She felt no hesitation. She felt only the cold, clear certainty of purpose that had driven humanity through every challenge it had ever faced. Navigation, she said. Time to target? 11 hours, 47 minutes, Admiral. Grace nodded. Good. All hands, prepare for combat. We have a long day ahead of us. The fleet flew on through the darkness between stars. 247 ships, carrying the fury of 18 billion people. The Shadow Maw had no idea what was coming. They had poked what they thought was a harmless creature. Now that creature was racing toward them with extinction in its eyes. The hunt was almost over. The killing was about to begin. The Shadow Maw outer defense perimeter had stood for 800 years. It consisted of 47 orbital platforms, each one bristling with weapons capable of destroying small moons. Behind the platforms waited the Third Fleet. 300 warships crewed by the finest warriors the Shadow Maw had ever produced. They had never been defeated. They had never even come close to being defeated. The human fleet hit them at near light speed. The Shadow Maw had expected a conventional approach. They had expected the humans to slow down, to assess the defenses, to look for weaknesses. That was how civilized species fought wars. You did not simply charge headlong into enemy territory without a plan. Humans had a plan. Their plan was violence. The first wave of kinetic projectiles arrived before the Shadow Maw even knew the humans were in range. Chunks of metal, accelerated to incredible speeds, slammed into the defense platforms with the force of nuclear explosions. The platforms did not have time to raise shields. They did not have time to fire back. They simply ceased to exist, transformed into expanding clouds of debris and vaporized metal. The Third Fleet scrambled to respond. Captains shouted orders. Weapon systems came online. Ships began to move into defensive formations. But the humans were already among them. They're smaller. Faster vessels weaving through the chaos like wolves among sheep. Commander. Nathan Cole led Strike Wing 7 through the heart of the Shadow Maw formation. His fighter, a sleek craft designed for exactly this kind of close-quarters combat, danced between enemy ships with casual grace. Nathan had been flying since he was 16 years old. He had competed in races, fought in simulations, trained for combat his entire adult life. This was what he was born to do. 7-3, you have 2 bandits on your 6, he called to his wingman. Lieutenant Maria Santos did not panic. She had seen the enemy ships the moment they appeared on her sensors. Her hands moved across her controls with the speed and precision of a concert pianist. Her fighter rolled into a spiral that would have killed most pilots. Her body straining against forces that should have been impossible to survive. The two Shadow Maw ships tried to follow her maneuver. They could not. Their bodies were not designed for such punishment. Maria's plasma cannon spoke twice. 2 enemy ships exploded. "Splash 2, she reported calmly. "Thanks for the warning." 7-1. Nathan grinned, despite himself. Maria was one of the best pilots he had ever seen. She flew like she was part of her ship, like the metal was an extension of her body. The Shadow Maw had no chance against her. The battle raged across thousands of kilometers. Human ships engaged Shadow Maw vessels in a chaotic dance of fire and death. The Shadow Maw had numbers on their side. They had experience and technology and 1,000 years of military tradition, but they had never fought humans before. The humans did not fight like other species. They did not wait for optimal firing solutions. They did not retreat when damaged. They did not surrender when surrounded. They threw themselves at the enemy with a ferocity that the Shadow Maw could not understand. They took risks that should have been suicidal, and somehow they survived. More importantly, they adapted. Within minutes of the first engagement, human commanders were analyzing Shadow Maw KI ticks and developing countermeasures. They shared information across the fleet instantly, learning from every encounter, getting better with every passing second. The Shadow Maw were fighting the same war they had always fought. The humans were evolving in real time. Admiral Sullivan watched the battle unfold from the bridge of the Retribution. Her flag officers reported constantly, giving her updates on every sector of the engagement. The news was good, better than good. The Shadow Maw were falling apart, Admiral Kyle reported. Shadow Maw 3rd Fleet is in full retreat. Estimated enemy losses at 60%. Grace nodded. Do not let them regroup. All pursuit-capable ships run them down. I want that fleet destroyed before they reach the homeworld. The human ships surged forward, hunting the fleeing Shadow Maw with the patience of predators who knew their prey could not escape. One by one, the Shadow Maw vessels were caught and destroyed. No quarter was asked. None was given. While the space battle raged, a different kind of fight was happening on the surface of the Shadow Maw homeworld. Intelligence had located the slave pens where the humans from New Montana were being held. Marine units had been assigned to rescue them, whatever the cost. Private Derek Hughes was in the first wave of landing craft. He gripped his rifle so tightly, his knuckles were white. Around him, other Marines sat in tense silence, waiting for the moment when the doors would open and the killing would begin. Sergeant Linda Park stood at the front of the craft. Her voice came through their helmet speakers, calm and steady. Listen up. Our people are down there. Children are down there. The Shadow Maw are going to try to stop us from getting them out. They are not going to succeed. We hit fast, we hit hard, and we do not stop until every single human is safe. Questions. No one had questions. They all knew what they had to do. The landing craft touched down in a storm of enemy fire. Anti-aircraft weapons filled the sky with death. Marines died before they even reached the ground. But enough of them survived. Enough of them always survived. That was the human way. Derek was out of the craft before the ramp had fully lowered. He hit the ground running, his rifle already firing at the Shadow Maw positions ahead. Enemy soldiers fell. Enemy bunkers exploded. The humans advanced through a wall of opposition that would have stopped any other species cold. Linda was beside him, moving with the easy confidence of a veteran. She killed with mechanical efficiency, never wasting a shot, never pausing to consider the lives she was ending. There would be time for that later. There was always time for guilt after the battle was won. The slave pens were massive structures built into the side of a mountain. They were designed to hold thousands of prisoners, keeping them alive just long enough to be useful. The Shadow Maw did not believe in treating their slaves well. They believed in breaking them. Derek was the first human to enter Slave Pen 7. He cleared the entrance with 2 quick shots, then moved inside with his rifle raised. What he found would stay with him for the rest of his life. Thousands of humans, packed into cells designed for animals. Men, women, and children, all of them bearing the marks of abuse. Some were too weak to stand. Some were too broken to look up. But others saw the armored figure in the doorway, saw the human flag on his shoulder, and they began to cry. Retribution actual. This is Hughes, Derek said into his communicator. We have survivors. Repeat, we have survivors. Requesting immediate medical evacuation.
Happy.
Evac is inbound. Secure that position. Derek moved through the pen, opening cells, helping people to their feet. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, grabbed his arm and would not let go. She stared up at him with eyes that had seen too much horror for someone so young. Are you an angel? She asked. Derek knelt down to her level. His voice was rough when he spoke. No, sweetheart. I am a Marine, and I am here to take you home. They said no one was coming. They said Earth forgot about us. Earth never forgot. Derek picked her up gently, holding her against his armored chest. We just needed a little time to get here. But we came. We will always come.
Outside.
The battle continued. Shadow Maw forces tried again and again to retake the slave pens. They failed. Human Marines held the line with a determination that bordered on insanity. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they would not move. They would not retreat. They would die where they stood before they let a single Shadow Maw reach the people they had come to save. More landing craft arrived, bringing reinforcements and medical supplies. Doctors and medics began treating the freed slaves, tending to wounds and illnesses that had been ignored for days. Counselors started the long process of helping people who had experienced unimaginable trauma. Derek stayed with the little girl until a medic took her for treatment. She did not want to let go of his hand. She was afraid that if she let go, he would disappear, and she would wake up back in her cell. I have to go help the others, he told her gently. But I promise you are safe now. No one is going to hurt you ever again. Promise? I promise. Humans keep their promises. He walked back into the chaos, back into the fighting, back into the war. But something had changed in him. The scared young man from Oklahoma was gone. In his place was something harder, something colder. Something that would never again hesitate to kill those who hurt innocent people. The predator had awakened, and it was hungry. The Galactic Council watched the destruction of the Shadow Maw Collective in real time. Holographic displays filled the Great Chamber, showing footage from thousands of sources. Ships exploding. Cities burning. An empire that had stood for 3,000 years crumbling into dust. Ambassador, Zalith, had not moved from her seat in 18 hours. Her crystalline body ached from the strain, but she could not look away. None of them could. They were witnessing history. They were witnessing the birth of a new power in the galaxy. The humans had not just defeated the Shadow Maw, they had erased them. Every military installation was destroyed. Every warship was hunted down and eliminated. Every weapon of significance was captured or demolished. The Shadow Maw had been the terror of the frontier for 30 centuries. In 72 hours, they ceased to exist as a military power. High Chancellor Voranth sat on his throne like a statue. His mandibles hung slack. His compound eyes stared at the displays without blinking. He had called the humans prey animals. He had laughed at their ambassador. He had told them to know their place. Now he was watching them destroy one of the most feared species in the galaxy with casual efficiency. This is impossible, a representative from the Moldari Federation whispered. The Shadow Maw had over 1,000 ships. The humans had less than 300. The numbers do not make sense. The numbers never mattered, Xylith replied. Her voice was tired, but steady. I tried to warn you. I showed you their history. I told you what they were capable of. But this level of coordination, this speed, this brutality, no species operates like this. Humans do. This is how they have always fought. They do not see war as a game or a competition. They see it as survival. And when humans are fighting for survival, they hold nothing back. On the displays, the footage shifted. The space battle was over. Now the cameras showed something different. Human ships, the same ships that had just slaughtered thousands of Shadow Maw warriors were descending toward civilian population centers. Medical vessels with large red crosses painted on their hulls, transport ships carrying supplies. The humans were helping. Xylith leaned forward, her crystalline face showing something like wonder. The humans had every reason to destroy the Shadow Maw completely. They could have bombarded the cities from orbit. They could have killed every last member of the species that had murdered their children. The galaxy would have understood. The galaxy might even have approved. Instead, they were setting up hospitals. They were distributing food and water. They were treating Shadow Maw civilians with the same care they showed their own wounded. What are they doing? Vorinth asked. His voice was barely a whisper. They are showing us who they are, Xylith replied. All of who they are. 1 week later, Ambassador Daniel Cooper returned to the council chamber. He walked to his podium with the same quiet dignity he had always shown. His face was calm. His voice was steady. But something had changed. Everyone in the chamber could feel it. He was not asking for permission anymore. He was telling them how things were going to be. Humanity wishes to address the council, he said. We have a message for all member species. Vorinth tried to speak, to assert his authority as High Chancellor, but no words came out. Xylith spoke instead. We are listening, Ambassador. Daniel nodded his thanks. Humanity came to the stars, hoping for friends. We came hoping to learn from civilizations older and wiser than ourselves. We came hoping to build a future where all species could live in peace. We asked for nothing but the chance to prove ourselves worthy of standing among you. He paused, looking around the chamber. Representatives from 47 species stared back at him, some with fear, some with respect, some with a mixture of both. Instead, we were mocked. We were dismissed. We were treated as lesser beings, prey to be tolerated until we became too troublesome. When our people were murdered, when our children were stolen, we asked for help. We were told to retreat. We were told to accept our weakness. We were told to know our place. His voice hardened slightly. Not anger, exact. Teal, something colder. We know our place now. We are humans. We are the descendants of persistence hunters who ran their prey to exhaustion across endless plains. We are the children of warriors who conquered every environment our world could offer. We are the inheritors of a legacy of survival that stretches back 200,000 years. Daniel placed his hands on the podium. We do not want war. We have never wanted war. Our history is full of blood and suffering, and we are tired of it. But understand this clearly. We will not be prey. Not for the Shadow Maw. Not for the Crothian Empire. Not for anyone. Threaten our families, harm our children, and we will respond with everything we have. We will not stop until the threat is eliminated. We will not negotiate while our people are in chains. We will not surrender. He let those words hang in the air for a long moment. We also remember how to be kind. The Shadow Maw civilians are being cared for. Their wounded are being treated. Their children are being fed and sheltered. We could have destroyed them completely. We chose not to. This is also who we are. We can be merciful. We can be generous. We can be the greatest friends you have ever had, or the worst enemies you can imagine. Daniel straightened and looked directly at Vorinth. The choice is yours. We offered friendship before, and you laughed at us. We offer it again now. Take our hand, and you will never find more loyal partners. Reject it, and well. He smiled slightly. It was not a warm smile. You have seen what happens to those who threaten us. Choose wisely. Silence filled the chamber. Then slowly, Xylith began to applaud. The crystalline chiming of her hands echoed through the great hall. Other representatives joined her. Not all of them. The Crothians sat rigid and silent, their pride preventing them from acknowledging what had just happened. But enough of them applauded. Enough to show that the galaxy's understanding of humanity had changed forever. After the session ended, Xylith approached Daniel in the corridor outside the chamber. That was quite a speech, Ambassador. Daniel shrugged. It was the truth. Nothing more. The truth can be a powerful weapon. almost as powerful as your fleet. We'd prefer not to use either. But we will if we have to. Xylith studied him with her crystalline eyes. You know, when I first started researching your species, I expected to find simple creatures, primitive beings who had stumbled into space by accident. Instead, I found the most complicated species I have ever encountered. Complicated how? You contain within yourselves the capacity for both incredible violence and incredible compassion. Most species are one or the other, predators or prey, conquerors or builders. You are all of these things at once. You can destroy an empire in 3 days and then spend months caring for its survivors. Daniel was quiet for a moment. We have a lot of history, not all of it good. We have done terrible things to each other over the centuries. We have also done wonderful things. We are trying to be better. That is all anyone can do. And if someone threatens your people again, if another species decides that humans are easy prey, the ambassador's eyes met hers. For just a moment, Xylith saw something behind his diplomatic mask, something old and patient and utterly without mercy. Then we will do what we have always done, he said quietly. We will survive. Whatever it takes. Xylith nodded slowly. I believe you, Ambassador. More importantly, I think the entire galaxy believes you now. Good, because I meant every word. Leaving Xylith alone in the corridor, she watched him go. This representative of a species that had just rewritten the rules of galactic politics and blood and fire, she had been right about them from the beginning. They were not prey. They had never been prey. They were predators who had learned to wear masks. And now the whole galaxy knew it. 5 years had passed since the fall of the Shadow Maw Collective. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. What had once been a chaotic mess of competing powers and territorial disputes had become something new, something more stable, something that revolved around a species that most of the galaxy had dismissed as harmless only a decade before. Humanity had been granted full council membership within weeks of the conflict's end. Their ambassador sat among the great powers now, his vote carrying the same weight as species that had traveled the stars for 10,000 years. But more important than the vote was the respect. When Daniel Cooper spoke, the chamber listened. When Earth made a suggestion, other species considered it carefully. Fear was part of it. No one could forget what the humans had done to the Shadow Maw. But respect was there too. Genuine respect for a species that had proven itself worthy of standing among the ancient powers of the galaxy. Admiral Grace Sullivan had retired 6 months after the war ended. She had done what needed to be done, and now she wanted peace. She lived on a small farm in Montana, growing vegetables and watching the sun set over the mountains. Sometimes she thought about the lives she had ended. Sometimes she wondered if there had been another way, but mostly she thought about the children they had saved. Mostly she thought about the families reunited, the slaves freed, the future that now stretched out ahead of humanity without the shadow of the Shadow Maw hanging over them. She had no regrets. War was terrible. But some things were worth fighting for. The children rescued from the slave pens had been returned to their families. Those who still had families, the orphans, were adopted by communities across human space. They would grow up scarred, marked by experiences that no child should ever have to endure. But they would grow up. They would have futures. That was what mattered. Private Derek Hughes had stayed in the Marines. He was a sergeant now, training the next generation of soldiers. He told them stories about New Montana, about the little girl who had asked if he was an angel. He taught them that being a warrior meant protecting those who could not protect themselves. He taught them that mercy was not weakness. The little girl had grown up too. Her name was Emma, and she was 11 years old now. She wrote letters to Derek sometimes, telling him about school and her friends and the dog her adoptive parents had gotten her. She never forgot the armored figure who had appeared in her darkest moment and carried her to safety. She wanted to be a Marine when she grew up. She wanted to save people like Derek had saved her on Nixera's prime. Ambassador Xylith had become humanity's strongest advocate on the council. She had watched them at their worst and their best. She had seen the destruction they could cause and the compassion they could show. She believed that the galaxy needed them. not as conquerors, but as something else entirely. Protectors. 3 species had applied for human protection treaties in the past month alone. Small species. Weak species. Species that had been preyed upon by stronger neighbors for centuries. They had seen what humanity did to those who hurt innocent people. They wanted that shield for themselves. Earth agreed to every request. Daniel Cooper stood in Xylith's office, looking out at the alien skyline of Nixeris Prime. 5 years of diplomacy had aged him. There were more lines on his face now, more gray in his hair, but his eyes were the same. Patient, watchful, hiding depths that few people ever saw. The Crothians are testing boundaries again, Xylith told him. Their fleet movements near the Valorian border are concerning. Daniel nodded slowly. We noticed. Admiral Patterson has already repositioned our 5th Fleet to observe. You move quickly. We learned too. Waiting for others to make decisions costs lives. We prefer to act first and explain later. Xylith's crystalline form shimmered with something like amusement. The Council is still adjusting to your approach. They will get used to it, or they will not. Either way, we are not going to stand by while people get hurt. Even people who are not human. Daniel turned to face her. Especially people who are not human. We spent too long looking only at ourselves. That narrow focus almost destroyed our own world, our own species. We are trying to be better now. We are expanding our definition of family to include everyone who needs help. Xylith considered this. Your species is remarkable, Ambassador. You contain within yourselves both the capacity for terrible violence and profound compassion. Most species lean one way or the other. You are balanced on a knife's edge between the two. We are complicated, Daniel agreed. We have a lot of history, good and bad. But we are trying. That is all anyone can do. Keep trying to be better than we were yesterday. And if someone threatens your people again, if another empire decides that humanity looks like easy prey, Daniel's expression did not change, but something shifted in his eyes. Something old and patient and completely without mercy. Then we will do what we have to do. We always have. We always will. It is not something we are proud of, but it is something we have accepted. Humanity will never be helpless again. We will never beg for protection, and we will never abandon our own. Xylith nodded slowly. I believe you. More importantly, the galaxy believes you. That might be your greatest achievement, Ambassador. Not the destruction of the Shadow Maw, but the peace that has followed. Species that have been fighting for centuries are talking now. Trade routes that have been closed for generations are opening up. The galaxy is more stable than it has been in 1,000 years. And we intend to keep it that way. No. That is why I supported your membership from the beginning. Not because I feared what you might do if rejected, but because I saw what you could become if accepted, a force for stability in a chaotic universe. A species that fights not for conquest, but for justice. Daniel finished his coffee and stood. We are still learning, Ambassador. Still figuring out who we want to be. But I think we are on the right path. As do I, Ambassador Cooper. As do I. Outside the window, the alien stars of Nexeris Prime glittered against an unfamiliar sky. Humanity had walked among them for barely a generation. A heartbeat in the life of the galaxy. But in that brief time, they had changed everything. They had shown that prey could become predator. They had demonstrated that the hunted could learn to hunt. They had proven that a species dismissed as harmless could shake empires that had stood for 10,000 years. More importantly, they had shown that strength and kindness were not opposites. They had proven that the same hands that could destroy could also heal. They had demonstrated that a species capable of unlimited violence could also choose mercy. The galaxy was still learning what to make of them. Some species feared the humans. Some respected them. Some were starting to see them as friends, as allies, as the protectors they had always needed but never had. Humanity accepted all of these roles. They had learned over 200,000 years that survival meant being adaptable. It meant being ready to fight when fighting was necessary, and ready to help when help was needed. It meant being predator and protector, warrior and healer. destroyer, and builder. The old powers of the galaxy were still adjusting to this new reality. The Crothians tested boundaries, probing for weakness, looking for signs that humanity could be pushed back into the corner where they had once been content to stay. They found nothing of the sort, because the corner was gone. The mask was off. The galaxy had seen what humans truly were, and there was no putting that knowledge back in its box. Earth had a saying that Daniel Cooper liked to quote in difficult negotiations. It came from an ancient warrior culture, and it captured something essential about his species. If you want peace, prepare for war. Humanity had prepared. Humanity was ready. And the galaxy was beginning to understand that this was not a threat but a promise. The humans would keep the peace because they had the power to enforce it. They would protect the weak because they had the strength to stop the strong. And if anyone was foolish enough to threaten them again, to touch their families, to harm their children, they would discover what the Shadow Maw had learned too late. Humans were not prey. They had never been prey. They were the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever seen, and they were just getting started. The stars stretched out before them, billions of lights representing billions of worlds. Some were friendly. Some were hostile. Some were waiting to be discovered. Humanity looked at those stars and saw not dangers to be feared, but challenges to be overcome. They had crawled out of the mud of one small world and clawed their way to the heavens. They had faced extinction a dozen times and survived every single time. They had looked into the abyss of their own nature and found the strength to choose light over darkness. Whatever the galaxy had in store for them, they were ready. They had always been ready. It was simply who they were. The day the Galactic Council witnessed humanity's predator mode fully awaken was not the end of a story. It was the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter that would span centuries and star systems, that would see humanity rise to heights they had never imagined. But that is a story for another time. For now, it was enough to know that the children were safe. The slaves were free. The threat was ended. And somewhere on a small farm in Montana, an old admiral was watching the sunset and feeling, for the first time in a very long time, at peace. The end.